Hey, I'm Hollis, and welcome to the Friendly Fangirl podcast, where I nerd out on the films, shows, and video games that I encounter every week. Be sure to follow this podcast, and please follow my Twitter and blog at Hollis Films to follow my journey experiencing the entertainment industry's greatest stories. Beware of spoilers, you have been warned. God of War. This game came out at a very interesting time. It was 5 years since The Last of Us, first of all. So here's another dad on beast mode, killing people and taking names. Actually, there are a lot of comparisons I can make to both stories. Maybe I'll write a blog about it someday. Anyways, this game also came out the same year as Spider-Man, Detroit Become Human, Red Dead Redemption. 2018 was honestly one of the best years in gaming in recent times. But God of War stood out against all the rest with its music, world design, graphics, story, and voice acting. Christopher Judge gives the iconic performance as Kratos. Sonny Solic was an excellent newcomer with a great performance of Boy. We also had Danielle Basutti, Jeremy Davies, Alistair Duncan, Robert Craighead, and Adam J. Harrington as wonderful supporting actors and characters. And throw in Troy Baker and Nolan North as the Sons of Thor. This is a cast of actors, guys. The gameplay truly makes you feel like the God of War. Even at the beginning, when you only have your axe, Kratos doesn't feel weak at all, and that's thanks to the combos and battle animations triggered in encounters. The best moments are definitely the fights with Boulder, especially that beginning battle when we're thrown into this fray in the first 15 minutes. While the graphics and the beautiful designs of the realms really make this game a beauty to behold, it's the music that just wraps everything together and makes the game art. Bear McCreary has ascended. 8 years prior to this, he was dropping the main theme to The Walking Dead, and then here he comes making this masterpiece. The soundtrack is one of the most memorable aspects of this video game, and that's all thanks to Bear. Now, going through English and literature classes over the years, I've had to study several Greek fables, and the story of Kratos is a story that also deserves that same treatment of in-depth analysis. God of War isn't much of a sequel or revamp or remake. It's really a continuation of Kratos, who made a name for himself as the Ghost of Sparta. I feel like this new chapter, this whole new series really, has given us a more intimate look on the character as a whole, in this whole new world with a brand new mythology and pantheon of gods to learn about. We go around as a raging killing machine, which Kratos has always been, but with his son, he's more vulnerable and actually more humanized as well. Kratos and Atreus are the heart and soul of the story. This is a story of loss and love for Kratos, while it's a coming-of-age story for Atreus. And on this journey to deliver Faye's ashes to her final resting place in Jotunheim, this iconic father and son duo must not only learn more about the world and the realms around them, but also about each other and the ultimate father-son bonding trip of life and death. Kratos accidentally killed his wife and daughter in the last series, so it's easy to root for Kratos to protect our son. Kratos has joint custody with every player ever. Atreus is everyone's boy. Talking about the first game just gets me excited for the sequel, which I'm several hours into right now. I just passed the part where they found a certain someone locked up in prison deep in the mines of Svartalheim. I'm already deeply invested in Ragnarok, and I hope when I finish that I'll love this game as much, if not more, than the first one. Hunter x Hunter has been on my list for a while as an anime considered one of the greatest of all time. Watching these greatest of all time animes has been 50-50. Like Berserk and Evangelion, I just didn't vibe with them completely, while Full Metal Alchemist and Code Geass were just perfection to me. Hunter x Hunter turned out to be a positive experience for me, though later I'll tell you why I should have watched the remake instead of the original. But yeah, Hunter x Hunter was solid, and I really enjoyed it. All the characters were interesting. That's it. That's all any story needs to anchor my attention. There's really not too much to say about Gon, and that's only because if you watch the show, literally every character has at least 2 inner monologues about how special he is. I mean, they're right, of course. Gon is just insanely likable, and I love the way he looks at the world and solves problems. He really is unique amongst everyone else in the show. Kurapika? I want to know more about him. I'll get into it later, but Kurapika is extremely clever, and when him and Gon put their minds together, they're unstoppable. Leorio is actually interesting because he really got through the exam through sheer dumb luck. But it's fun to have a charismatic guy like him around, acting like the dad of the group. I would have loved to see him grow stronger, as he had potential to go from underdog to beast. Killua was by far the most interesting character out of the main 4. His arc and development was so dimensional given his background. I really loved that moment when he wanted to kill that injured bear cub. That was a huge turning point in his character as a child who was raised to be a killing machine, being taught that there's more to life than just death. When it comes to antagonists, no question Hisoka was the most interesting. With his abilities, he just seemed untouchable, and that made him scary. Not to mention his psychopathic aura and creepy smile. He's definitely one of those characters that's not on one side or the other, just his own. So I can totally imagine him killing his allies for fun, or helping our protagonist to benefit him. Going into the story, the Hunter exam took about half the series to complete, at least with the original, and it was a fun concept for sure. Trick Tower and the Hunger Games portions were the most fun to watch, and the final exam played out in a very interesting way. The Hunter exam also emphasized the tone of the story, which is quite polarizing. In my mind, I constantly compared Hunter x Hunter to The Last Airbender, at least when it came to tone, but it's way darker than The Last Airbender, given the violent natures of the world. I mean, I know Last Airbender had the whole Holocaust thing, but we never really saw, there was just a certain level of violence that they didn't pass just because it was a Nickelodeon show. Hunter x Hunter was able to get a little bloody at times, which is what makes it so much more darker than Last Airbender. Although I could go more, but basically it's like Last Airbender, but just a bit more PG-13. People died brutally sometimes, and that's the major difference, I guess. But Gon is there, always there, to make it feel like we're still in a kids show. Except that one time Gon felt defeated after that whole badge debacle, but I mean, that was really excellent character development. I was obsessed with the Zoldyck family arc. Assassins are just my thing, and the whole family and their property and their employees had a distinct culture within the land's walls, and it was fun to learn about. This was followed by Gon and Killua's Heaven's Arena experience. This is when we learned about Nen and ores and stuff. This concept helped explain Hisoka's abilities a bit more, and it also helped Gon level up as well, which he already did when he trained to open the Zoldyck door in that arc. But it also made Hisoka's level of power look attainable as well. There was a moment in Gon's arc when he became obsessed with training, and it made the teacher believe he was creating a monster out of Gon by teaching him Nen. given that he was gaining a lot of power really fast. I don't know, I think Beast Mode Gon would be a lot of fun to watch. Didn't really get that in the series, so I'm wondering if the remake touches on it a bit more. Heaven's Arena also played the part as filler, build up to York New City. It was build up to the York New City auction, which unfortunately the original anime ends on. Now, the whole auction arc was intense. We finally see the spiders in action, even seeing Kaluuya's father and grandfather on the job because of it. All really epic. But then it just ended. And I was disappointed. So many arcs were left incomplete. Gon's dad and Kurapika's Scarlet Eyes quest were not even close to being complete. And it's like how I felt at the end of Evangelion and Berserk. I enjoyed all three animes, every second, completely engulfed and memorized up until the final moments or episodes. However, from my understanding, the remake goes further than the original, at least twice as long it looks like, so I'm already making plans to watch it. I'm actually really excited to watch the remake. Hunter x Hunter has already proven itself to be a great story with wonderful characters, and the original just left me craving so much more. There are a lot of negative reviews, and I just gotta say, none of y'all better say this movie is the worst when cars and planes exist. The first was okay, but after that, it became a franchise geared toward 4-year-old boys with car obsessions. Be critical, but not be overdramatic, please. Jeez Louise. That being said, Strange World. I did enjoy this movie, though it does rank a little low for me compared to like 60 other Disney films. At its surface, it's one of those I don't want to be like my parent but ended up like them anyway story with Yeager and Searcher. But, we've seen it before. The real moral of the story and the real heart and soul of this film is actually a message about protecting the environment with grandson Ethan at the helm. When I first saw the trailer for the first one that they released for this movie, I was like, oh, it's Rick and Morty meets Treasure Planet. Then I started watching the actual movie and I was like, oh, it's Rick and Morty meets Atlantis meets Journey to the Center of the Earth. But at the end, I was like, it's Rick and Morty meets Atlantis meets Journey to the Center of the Earth meets Osmosis Jones meets Last Airbender because they live on the back of a lion turtle. Hello? That was such a cool concept. Square Enix, are you watching? I need this in Kingdom Hearts 4, now. I love the design of this realm and the creatures. It totally gives me Subnautica vibes, and it was a joy to look at. To end it off, we've got a multiracial couple with their mixed gay son. Question, the people that hated Turning Red for being, and I quote, inappropriate, I feel like might say this is woke Disney being woke Disney, but those aspects were not in our face. Multinational and multiracial couples are literally all of the LGBTQ plus people are normal and should be normalized and seen as normal. I hate racism and homophobia and the likes, and I am not afraid to call people out. But I also hate when film and television shove that in our faces and make the color of someone's skin or their sexuality to be the prime trait of a character. There is a thing as too much, but Strange World did it right. And the same can be said for Powerful Woman. There are strong female characters here, also normalized in this society. The mom is an engineer, and there are 2 leading ladies on the crew. That was awesome. And another small representation thing. The family dog has 3 legs, and there is a shot of a kid in a wheelchair. That may not be a big deal for you, but kids with limb differences and or physical disabilities are probably going to get excited about that. In conclusion, yay or nay? Well, It's one of the more average Disney films. For me, there are hardly any bad Disney films, except for Cars and Planes, and most of the live-action remakes. I did enjoy Strange World for what it was, but you could watch Treasure Planet, Atlantis, or even WALL-E for better adventures and similar values. Several weeks ago, we were hit hard by the deaths of extraordinary legends, Robbie Coltrane, last week's superstar, being one of them, but only 48 hours prior, we lost another great, the amazing Angela Lansbury, who was also featured in my podcast this week with this week's Superstar Award. Angela Lansbury was born and raised in an upper-middle-class lifestyle in England. Her mother was an actress, and after her father died of cancer when she was 9, Angela began acting to help cope with her grief. As she grew up, she was a movie fanatic and had a large interest in theater and film. Angela and her family evacuated to America and made their way to New York as the Nazis bombed the UK. While under dire circumstances, the war put her in the US with Hollywood on the other side of the country and Broadway in her backyard. She ended up moving to LA in the early 40s to start her career. She apparently had an interesting time on the streets of LA until she met a Hollywood writer at one of her mother's Hollywood parties, landing her breakout role in the film Gaslight, which really started her career in the best way possible, receiving her first of 3 Oscar nominations for her performance. Some other roles she had in the 40s included National Velvet with Elizabeth Taylor, State of the Union with Katharine Hepburn, The Three Musketeers with Gene Kelly, The Harvey Girls with Judy Garland, and, with another Oscar nomination, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Angela continued to establish herself in the entertainment industry through the 50s, starring in films like Kind Lady and Court Jester, as well as starring in her first Broadway play, Hotel Paradiso. The 60s and 70s kept Angela busy as she continued to be a prominent figure on stage and on screen. She received her 3rd Oscar nomination for her role in the film Manchurian Candidate. She also starred in the critically acclaimed drama Dark at the Top of the Stairs, and appeared beside Elvis Presley in his film Blue Hawaii. She was on Broadway a few more times in the productions of Ma'am, Dear World, Taste of Honey, and Anyone Can Whistle, nabbing a couple of Tony Awards with her first nominations and wins with Ma'am and Dear World. In 1971, she starred as Miss Price in Disney's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember it being kinda like a spiritual successor to Mary Poppins, but wasn't as big of a hit, right? I could be wrong in that, but I totally enjoyed it as a kid. She was also part of the ensemble cast with Dame Maggie Smith in the original Poirot mystery film, Death on the Nile. In 1973, Angela portrayed Rose for her first West End production of Gypsy, and would then reprise the role in the Broadway revival production the next year, which won her 3rd Tony. Among her other handful of theater roles, this decade included Pretty Belle, All Over, Hamlet, and The King and I. Now, one of my favorite musicals of all time is Sweeney Todd. Tim Burton's film adaptation is amongst his greatest work, and I watch it every year for Halloween. Angela passed away during the spooky season, and I felt that it was the most appropriate way to honor her was to listen to the original cast recording of the original Broadway production of Sweeney Todd for Angela Lansbury was the first to ever portray Mrs. Lovett in the musical about a serial killer. Yeah. Angela's career in the 80s, and I think also the 90s, was defined by her role as Jessica Fletcher in the series Murder, She Wrote. She was also in other films like The Last Unicorn and The Pirates of Penzance. 17 years after the original production of Ma'am, Angela reprised her role as Ma'am Dennis in the Broadway revival. Going into the 90s, I think we can all agree Angela is most remembered for her performance in Anastasia and as Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. I don't even know what to add to that, but her performance of the song Beauty and the Beast is iconic, and the scene is one of the greatest moments of Disney's cinematic history. Wrapping up into the 21st century, Angela Lansbury continued to be extremely active in her career through her final years. She returned to Broadway in a few different plays and musicals in the productions of Deuce, Blithe Spirit, A Little Night Music, and The Best Man, receiving Tony nominations with a win with Blithe Spirit. She received 2 Emmy nominations for her role in the miniseries Blackwater Lightship, as well as for her guest appearance on Law & Order. She reprised her role as Mrs. Potts in Kingdom Hearts 2, which, just a note I made for myself. She appeared in Nanny McPhee as that old aunt from the wedding where she gets cake thrown at her face. She also had a cameo appearance in Mary Poppins Returns. I feel like that the balloon lady was meant to be a moment for Julie Andrews, but I guess Julie didn't want to do it. But if anyone else was going to start Nowhere to Go But Up, I'm glad it was Angela. It was honestly really hard to write this segment because there's honestly too much Angela is credited for. I did not do her justice by any means, but hopefully I was able to mention some of the major projects that she was a part of. Angela, you are so missed, and I cannot express enough how phenomenal your career was. Thank you for making so many generations happy. That's it for this week. Again, follow me on Twitter or leave a comment, and let me know what you've been fangirling over this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next week.